You're listening to Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Overdoing It, where our team of library workers dish about their latest reads, views, and passions, alongside fascinating conversations with local luminaries. I'm your host, Lauren Walker, Director of the Coventry Public Library, and my pronouns are she, her. Let's dive in and discover who our guests are today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Fogarty, she, her, and I serve as Program Coordinator for the Rhode Island Semiquincentennial Commission, or more affectionately known in less words, RI-250.
Hi, I'm Dave Procaccini. I'm the president of the Nathanael Greene Homestead Association, and I'm the colonel in command of the Kingston Reds, that are a Rhode Island State Militia unit that also make their home at the Nathanael Greene Homestead.
Lauren and Dave, welcome to the show. I have to say, Lauren, you said the word for 250th like it was nothing. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, when you say it as much as I do, it kind of just rolls off the tongue after a while.
That's fair.
It's not a real word, so don't feel bad if you can't get it the first few times.
Okay.
We made it up.
It's Latin, right?
Sort of.
Okay.
Pulling from a number of different Latin phrases.
Fair enough. Well, a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about Major General Nathanael Greene, Rhode Island's role in the American Revolution, and RI-250. But before we get to that, let's start out, as we always do, with what have you been reading and watching?
I can start. Kind of one of the perks of being the RI-250 program coordinator. We're constantly going out to partner events, plenty at the Nathanael Greene Homestead. But most recently, I went to the John Brown House Museum, where they had a speaking series with Rick Atkinson on the Revolutionary trilogy that he's currently creating. He's on book 2, so I'm actually really excited. I just purchased his first rendition from it for The British Are Coming, and I'm excited to kick that off and kind of timely with all the work that we're doing.
That's awesome.
I just finished watching the second season of Andor, which was really interesting and on multiple levels, it was worth watching. And I'm actually reading Foxfire, which is an anthology of magazine articles from a high school program in the late 60s in West Virginia, where the students went out and interviewed all relatives and people living in Appalachia, and they put it in a magazine. The teacher that came up with it did it for a way to calm down his unruly students. And I'm on the first book from the late 60s, but they're on 13 volumes now. It's all different stories. I mean, it's stories about folks growing up in the Appalachia, and it's, how to butcher a hog. It's all different, really interesting stuff that they put in the magazine. And I came across it, and it's pretty interesting.
That's very cool. I think I've heard of that. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good.
It's funny that you mention Appalachia, because I have just started reading Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is about a boy growing up in Appalachia. And I guess it's based on David Copperfield in some way, but I actually have never read David Copperfield, so I couldn't tell you in what ways it's similar. But it's written from the point of view of this young boy, and with it being like a boy growing up in the country, it actually reminds me of Huckleberry Finn a little bit. But yeah, it's really well written. I'm really enjoying it. I'm probably like not even a quarter of the way through it yet, but I'm very much enjoying that. And I just finished the final season of Handmaid's Tale, which was, I will say, the third season was a little slow, and I was like, where are they going to go with this? But I think they nailed it with the final season, and they like brought back some characters with like some flashbacks and kind of things. And yeah, I think they did a great job.
I haven't delved into that myself, but I've always wanted to.
Have you watched it at all, or no?
I've been holding off to read the book, and basically with all the celebrations, commemorations, and work that's being done, it's been on my back burner, but I'm excited to, maybe in 2027 I'll get into it.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, the book and the first season of the show line up. But the book is actually very short and it doesn't go into as much detail as the show does. And then everything after season one is like the show's invention, basically. But yeah, I would say if you wanted to read the book, I don't know if you do audiobooks. I mostly listen to audiobooks, so that would probably be a pretty quick listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to really read through it and get through it, but that will take much more time, which I don't think I'll be offered or allotted with the upcoming commemoration. So,
Yeah, well, that segues us perfectly into my questions. Lauren, for our listeners who may not know, what is RI 250?
yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to chat with you about this evening. So, the Rhode Island 250 Commission is preparing to commemorate the nation's semi-quincentennial in 2026, and especially ensure that Rhode Island's unique role in the revolution is highlighted. We want to make sure that all revolutionary stories, including those that have historically gone untold, are featured. And our website, rhodeisland250.org, is really the best place to learn about what's happening statewide and tell us about events that they'd like to see featured. Obviously, the Nathanael Greene Homestead is kind of the crown jewel for our kind of stake in the American Revolution, and we've been happy to promote and elevate many of the events from birthday celebrations, wedding celebrations, and all bench dedications at the Nathanael Greene Homestead. And that's really the best part of the work, is uplifting the work that's already being done and done well across the state.
That's great. And when you say Rhode Island's role in the American Revolution, and this is actually for both of you, if you want to talk a little bit about what that role actually was.
Yeah, I mean, Rhode Island was very much at the forefront and central to the formulation of our nation. And we constantly talk about this through the tours that we're giving at the State House, starting in the Charter Museum. And really, what we're leaning into right now is educator development for 2026. So, talking about starting with Roger Williams and his contributions to freedom of religion, and then working our way through the burning of the Gaspee and then the Battle of Rhode Island, and kind of going on from there. But certainly talking about these key figures like Nathanael Greene. And by no means am I going to top what Dave and his fellow members at the Nathanael Greene Homestead talk about pretty much every single week, especially in season right now. But we very much were integral to this role, declaring independence 2 months before the rest of the colonies. We were the first to do that. We were the spark of the American Revolution. We were talking about the Gaspee, the burning of the HMS Gaspee on Narragansett Bay really was the first act of defiance and violence against the crown. And we were quite tight-lipped. So it's a very unique story. And even to the first integrated military regiment in American military history with the 1st Rhode Island Regiment. We have such a unique story, and we're just really excited to kind of amplify that statewide, at the regional level, and even nationwide. But Dave, I would love to hear more about Nathanael Greene. I'm sure the listeners would love to, and I'm not going to by any means take that on.
So Nathanael Greene was involved in multiple aspects of Rhode Island during the American Revolution. One of Greene's family's ships was taken by the Gaspee, the Fortune, which was commanded by his cousin Rufus, who was beat up pretty good while they were in the middle of the seizure of the ship. The sheriff of Providence was serving a warrant to Duddingston on behalf of Nathanael Greene for the seizure of the value of the ship and its cargo, which was, I think, 300 pounds. And that was the spark that got Nathanael Greene involved in politics. In his letters, he doesn't talk about politics at all until it hit him in his pocketbook, which is interesting. And he went out and he joined the Kentish Guards with his friend James Mitchell Farnham. And he almost quit. He threatened to quit because he had a severe limp. And members of the company said that he was a smudge on the company because he walked with a limp and his musket wobbled in the line. And he was voted in as a private, and he thought he was going to be an officer. And so he tried to quit. But shortly after joining the Kentish Guards, he was promoted from private in the Kentish Guards to the Brigadier General in command of the Rhode Island Army of Observation, and was sent to Boston, actually 2 months before Washington got there. Washington was very impressed with Greene in Boston, and as the war progressed, they became closer and closer. Greene had some early mistakes in the New York campaign, where he lost the Forts Washington and Lee and their garrison and all of their supplies, and Washington stood up for Greene. Um, Greene was involved with the retreat from New York, and Washington sent him ahead to set up supply depots across New York to Pennsylvania in advance of the retreat to Valley Forge. Nathanael Greene was the quartermaster general at Valley Forge and saved the army by providing food, clothing, and shoes. He was involved with the capture of Major John Andre, who worked with Benedict Arnold to try to take West Point, and he presided over Andre's trial, where he was hanged as a spy. And Greene's most notable contribution were the campaign in the South. Greene fought Cornwallis all through the South, outnumbered roughly 10-1. And he fought a war of pretty much a tactical retreat from the deep South north by crossing rivers and hitting the British where he felt comfortable and in command of the field. And he consistently gave pretty much 8-1 casualties against the British. So he would hit the British, hit them hard, cause massive casualties, and then retreat. So he would leave the British in command of the field, but cause quite a bit of damage. And he did that from the deep South all the way to Virginia. His most notable retreat was the race to the Dan River, where he only beat the British by 20 miles. The British were only 20 miles behind him, and he crossed the Dan, and then regrouped and recrossed the Dan and fought the British at Utah Springs and Guilford Courthouse, which were both ties. But that's eventually wore General Cornwallis out, and he retreated to the coast to Yorktown, where the combined French and American forces marched from Newport to Yorktown, surrounding the British at Yorktown and the French fleet blockading Yorktown, and beginning the end of the war. Greene was not at Yorktown. He was out in the field taking out small British garrisons for about a year after Yorktown. That's the encapsulated short version of Nathanael Greene's contribution. Greene was also involved with Varnum with pushing for the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, the Black Regiment. Greene was almost as heavily involved as Varnum was in that process, and his cousin Christopher Greene commanded the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, so there's a close tie there. So that's Greene's contribution. And what's interesting is Greene was a great tactician and a great logician, and was really good at moving men and material. And he learned how to do all of that by working for his father's business and running the Homestead, Nathanael Greene Homestead, the large iron foundry that was on site, the grist mill on site, the sawmill, and the shipping that they owned. And he took all of that knowledge and put that into being able to move men and material really well during the war. There are great examples in Greene's letters to his brother Jacob. Jacob was up in Rhode Island running the property where the Homestead is, and wasn't that great at it. And Nathanael Greene, while he was on campaign in the Deep South, would send very detailed letters to his brother telling him how to do everything from who the best person to buy lumber was, what the best price was, who was good at what that worked on the property. It's really interesting how well he knew his business and then translated that into running an army. So
that's really amazing. I remember we had a lecture here at the Coventry Public Library. I think we partnered with the Battle of Rhode Island Association and the Nathanael Greene Homestead. And there was a local author, Janet Ular, who presented about Major General Nathanael Greene. And when she was talking about, the race to the Dan River and how he saved the troops as quartermaster by providing them with everything they needed, and kind of nagged the army to death to get what he needed for his troops. It was just, I couldn't believe that a lot of people don't know who he is. And, here in Coventry, we know who he is, but around the state, a lot of people don't know. So it's always amazing just to hear about everything that he accomplished.
Well, he was Washington's chosen successor as well. He was actually commander-in-chief briefly while Washington went to Philadelphia to the capital. So Greene was actually in command of the Continental Army for the 2 or 3 or 4 days when Washington was absent. Wow. But he was Washington's chosen successor and second in command through the entire war.
he really was revered in the South. And honestly, I've heard it asserted many times that if he hadn't passed on as early as he did, that he may have even served as president early on. So, um,
Well, knowing him fairly well from a lot of his writings, I he had a really very low opinion of politics. It was almost detrimental to his career. He ended up on the Southern campaign because the first three generals that preceded him failed, and Congress picked the first three, and they told Washington he could pick the fourth, and he said Greene, and they said, great, he can fail, and we'll be rid of him. They thought he was going to fail, and they wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. He had no filter. He and I have that very much in common.
that's fair. That's fair. But I feel like when George Washington is tapping you, you got to kind of respond. You got to answer. I think he would have absolutely done his due diligence, and that would have been great for Rhode Island, I would say.
Well, he turned Washington down as Secretary of War. That's how Knox became. Greene said no, and that's how Knox took that position. So who knows?
Who knows?
Very interesting. So this specific question is for Lauren. What kind of events can listeners expect to see around RI 250?
Absolutely. So we're working really hard right now to currently we're focusing really heavily on our website to create this kind of one-stop shop for the semi-quincentennial so that people from across the state can go to this website and see this statewide calendar in 2026 and get involved. We've gone to all 39 municipalities and presented in front of each city and or town council to ask them to create a local committee to organize so that we do have this saturated calendar of events that all Rhode Islanders can engage, and we ensure that they're engaged at this milestone. So we're really excited about that. We have our partner events on our website, so we're elevating the work that's being done by the Nathanael Greene Homestead and by our other partners around the state even now, leading up to this significant milestone in our nation's history. We most notably just finished our professional development series for educators. We did 6 education series that were recorded and will be in evergreen resources added to that educators resource hub that I was talking about. And of course, we're working really hard, thanks to an appropriation from the General Assembly, to have some signature events for 2026 and hopefully surrounding that July 4th date. So more to come on that. We are in those kind of negotiations and figuring out what that looks like. But by all means, there is going to be a lot going on in Rhode Island, and we're just really happy to be the clearinghouse that's facilitating that.
So when you talk about the educator resources, does that mean that in schools throughout Rhode Island, kids will be learning specifically about these events in the American Revolution in Rhode Island, like the burning of the Gaspee and General Nathanael Greene and the Rhode Island First Regiment?
Absolutely. I mean, these are the things that we're hoping to really amplify during this milestone. And we're trying to ensure that educators are prepared for that. RIDE has announced recently new standards for educators, really leaning into these untold stories. So things like the First Rhode Island Regiment, as well as expanding that 4th grade American Revolutionary curriculum. So we're really excited about that and just trying to help prepare teachers as much as we can for the milestone and get them, if they can slip in something about the burning of the Gaspee or the Battle of Rhode Island, we've done something right. So we're really excited to launch this next month.
That's awesome. And Dave, is the Nathanael Greene Homestead planning any special events or anything for RI 250?
We're working on a calendar of events, but we're going to keep our stuff relatively small. First, we don't really have deep pockets, so it's really difficult for us to do big events. But we'll be partnering with some other groups doing stuff. We do some work with the state militia. We do work with the Butts Hill Association. We work with them frequently. We're going to be supporting some of the stuff in the town in Coventry. My lieutenant colonel from the Kingston Reds, who's also a volunteer at the Homestead, will be at the event a week from Saturday for Coventry, reading the proclamation from the, I think it's from the Secretary of State, the proclamation. I'm not sure. I'm working on that for Brendan because he's working on Gaspee. But we feel that the best way to learn about Nathanael Greene and his contribution to the American Revolution and the forming of the country is one-on-one, coming to the Homestead and visiting. So we've been pushing people to come to the Homestead, and we have small localized events going on at the Homestead throughout the year. Like we have our open house on the 4th of July. We had an open house on Rhode Island Independence Day. interesting fact, Nathanael Greene was the first American patriot to coin a Declaration of Independence 6 months prior to the Declaration of Independence. He wrote in a letter that we should have a Declaration of Independence, so that's interesting.
Huh.
So we highlight that. We talk about early stuff leading up to the war. We talk about the Gaspee affair and the Greenes' connection to that, but we also highlight the two major events with the ships that predate Gaspee. The Artillery Company of Newport being called out in, I can't remember the year, 1768 maybe, or 65, when the Artillery Company of Newport was called out by the state legislature to open fire with their cannons on HMS St. John in protest of the Sugar Act, and also the burning of HMS Liberty in Newport Harbor prior to the burning of the Gaspee. Those events led up to the Gaspee, so we highlight that in our presentations. But we will have Nathanael Greene's birthday on his birthday this year on July 27th. I know everybody else celebrates it on August 7th, but when he was born, it was the old style calendar, which was July 27th.
Oh.
And when the new style calendar was adopted, they moved his birthday 10 or 11 days, but we celebrate on the actual date he was born when he was born. We'll have some other small events going on. We're going to be starting an educational programming on 2 Saturdays a month. We're working on that. And we're working on our calendar for next year, but we're not done. But we're staying relatively small and localized. With all the other states around us having planned really large events like quite a few years back, it's very difficult for us to host any large living history events at the Homestead like we did in the past, because reenactors and living histories are going to big events that are located on or near the sites when they happened, and there were no battles at the Homestead, so we don't foresee too much of that going on in the next 7 or 8 years. So we're gonna stay small. We're gonna encourage people to come to the Homestead and learn about Nathanael Greene and his contributions firsthand from our very knowledgeable volunteer staff. We're starting to expand our hours. Today was the first Thursday that the Homestead has been open in probably 3 decades. So we've gone from 4 days a week to 5, and next year we hope to go to 6 days a week and reach more people traveling. During COVID, I worked remotely when I was at DOT, and I actually worked from the Homestead because it was quiet there. And we had a ton of people during the week that would stop by to visit, and we haven't been able to catch them. So we're able to catch them now. We actually had the guy that runs the blacksmith shop at the Alamo come today for a tour. So that was pretty interesting.
That's really cool.
And folks like that are sharing our story and the story of the Homestead all over social media, and we're starting to have a lot of interest with folks traveling. We've had a bunch of people on Revolutionary War tours that have stopped at the Homestead. It's on the top of their list in New England. So what we lack in funds and in staff, we make up for with enthusiasm and a small staff that are very zealous about sharing the story
And knowledgeable.
and knowledgeable. We have a really great staff, and everybody else on the staff are way more knowledgeable than I am.
Wow, that's a pretty high bar, it seems.
No, they're really good. I'm the administrator. On a Saturday, they do tours, and I cut the grass and make sure like whatever building we're building is being built. So that's what we're up to.
That all sounds fantastic. And I know there's also something special going on with a painting called Brave Men As Ever Fought. Lauren, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about the portrait. Brave Men As Ever Fought is a beautiful depiction that was actually commissioned by the Museum of the American Revolution for their opening, and it depicts the 1st Rhode Island Regiment marching on their way from Rhode Island through Philadelphia on their way to Yorktown. They were the first integrated military regiment in American military history, and they were from Rhode Island. General James Varnum was the one who noticed and petitioned George Washington that we needed more men to fight, and through enlistment, they were able to fight for their freedom and receive a pension. It's a really unique story, and we're just excited to highlight it. In the picture, it actually showcases James Forten, who was an abolitionist from Philadelphia, and the title actually comes from a letter that he wrote to William Lloyd Garrison referencing this tremendous unit that was marching through Philadelphia and how amazing he thought it was. And from that, we now have this amazing depiction of such an important regiment in American military history, but also that showcases Rhode Island's pivotal role in this history. We were lucky enough to work with and collaborate with the Museum of the American Revolution to bring Don Troiani's painting to the Rhode Island State House from February through June. And it had such a great reception that we were so excited that we ended up commissioning our own portrait. We will have a permanent piece as a part of the State House's collection that will be making its way around the state in 2026. So keep an eye out for that in your communities. And we're just really excited to highlight these often untold stories that the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, for one, is at this very important milestone in our nation's history.
That's really cool. And so for Dave, I wanted to ask if any listeners are interested in visiting the homestead or getting involved, where can they find more information?
So they can find information on our Facebook account. It's General Nathanael Greene Homestead. They can find it on our Instagram account, which I'm not sure what it's under that, but it's probably Nathanael Greene Homestead.
I think it is.
We have a Twitter account that like 6 people follow, so they can probably find stuff on our Twitter account. We have a website that it has our contact information. I don't think it's updated to our Thursday hours as of today, but it's fairly recent. And they can call the homestead. Our vice president Josh, who's also our curator, lives on site at the homestead. He's the caretaker. He lives in our visitor center, and so he's there all the time and answers calls. But we're always looking for help. We're looking for help to give tours. We're looking for help in our gift shop. We're looking for help in our curatorial department. And we're always happy to have interns. We have, I think, 1 or 2 college students that are interning this summer. And we're always looking for grounds maintenance help. In the last 6 years, we've grown the property from 11 acres to 50. And it's a lot to take care of. We're reclaiming some of it. We're working on encroachments and people that are not treating the property well. So we're looking for help with maintenance on the property. And we're always happy to have help. We have a very, very diverse workforce. It's a safe, comfortable environment to volunteer at. Everyone is welcome. Whoever they are, they're welcome. And it's a nice, fun, safe place for people to volunteer and have a nice time. And I mean, that's how you get us. It's interesting, Lauren, you talked about the painting. Sorry, I'm going to hijack you for 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
My 6th or 7th grade uncle, Elijah Lewis, was the captain of the 5th Company of the 1st Rhode Island Regiment.
Oh, wow.
And he resigned his commission right after Colonel Christopher Greene was massacred. He was dragged out of his little hut in the early mornings and he was hacked to pieces. And 20 to 25 of his soldiers, whether they were African American or Native American or some of the white soldiers that fought with him, were either captured or killed getting his body back. But he resigned due to PTSD. The returns show that he resigned due to insanity. And when he got his head back together, he became the master of a privateer and was captured and spent the rest of the war in a prison in Kinsale, Ireland, until the island accidentally on purpose let him and a bunch of other guys out. And Ben Franklin sent a ship and rescued them and brought them back to America. But he was a recruiter for the 1st Rhode Island, and then he served as a captain in the unit, which is interesting.
Wow.
Rich family history there.
Yeah, my mother's family have a big, varied history in Rhode Island. They were some of the largest landowners, the big Narragansett planters, and the largest slave owners in the state. It's a very interesting history.
Wow. I've actually been to Kinsale, Ireland. So now I'm like trying to figure out where was there a jail? I know there's a fort.
I've been to Kinsale, and it's the castle, Kinsale Castle.
Oh.
It was where the prison was.
Okay.
But I didn't know about it when we were there, so we walked right by.
That's very cool. I know every time I hear the story of the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, I'm like, how has no one made a movie about this yet?
A guy was gonna, but the project kind of fell apart. I don't think he had enough traction.
The Ken Burn documentary on the American Revolution maybe leans into 1st Rhode Island Regiment. I think seemed to be interested in it, so maybe it will make an appearance. Who knows? Well, fingers crossed. I know Nathanael Greene will certainly get his nod.
Love a good Ken Burns documentary.
Absolutely. Very excited for that.
And just so that all of our listeners know, as the director of the Coventry Public Library, I just want to say that we have a museum pass at the library for the Nathanael Greene Homestead. So if anyone is interested in going, they can get the museum pass from the library, and it has free admission for up to 2 adults. And as far as I know, unless this has changed, Dave, children 17 and under are already free. Is that correct?
No, actually, children 7 to 16 or 7 to 15 are $5, and then children under 7 are free. But the library pass, we've actually however a number of family members come, we let the whole family in for free when they take it. We're
Oh.
fine with that.
Oh, okay. So that's why it says children 17 and under are free. I thought it was like
Right.
always, but that's with the
No,
pass. Okay.
like if you do like the Mystic Seaport one, it's like 2 adults and 2 kids. We're happy to have people come. So if it's 2 adults and 7 kids, we let them all in for free anyway. We actually had a family use it last week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, which
I'm
was pretty
glad
cool.
it's
Yeah.
getting used.
We need the money, but we are also happy to let people, we want people to come and enjoy it that can't afford to pay. We actually just raised our admission price for the first time in 8 years by a whopping $2 more for adults and $1 more for kids.
I think that's fair.
So it was 8 and 4, and now it's 10 and 5.
Okay. And Lauren, where can our listeners find more information about RI 250?
Please come and visit our website, rhodeisland250.org, and our socials, Facebook and Instagram, also the same at Rhode Island 250. This will have all of the events that we're elevating, that we're hosting, and resources for educators to engage with families. We're just really excited to roll out some really great things to mark this huge milestone in our nation's history in our state, and we look forward to expanding the knowledge on our role.
That's great. And is there anything that either of you wanted to add that we haven't already talked about RI 250 or Nathanael Greene Homestead or anything coming up?
I can make a shameless plug for the Kingston Reds.
Yeah.
So Rhode Island has a state militia that serves under the governor and the adjutant general of the National Guard, but it is not the National Guard. So Rhode Island still has a state militia, an organized state militia, like companies you might have heard of, the Patuxent Rangers or the Artillery Company of Newport, or the Kentish Guards or the Varnum Continentals. Those are all Rhode Island state militia companies. And the Kingston Reds that are at the Homestead are a state militia company. We were founded in October of 1775, and our charter has been continuously active since then. If people want to get involved on that level, all of the militia companies in the state are constantly looking for members. Most of the militia companies are fife and drum corps. The Kingston Reds are more of a living history unit that does very, very precise, period correct living history and reenacting. We heavily research our uniforms and our kit and what we do, probably more than some of the other militia companies, but each company has its own specialty and its own way of educating the public. And there are militia companies all over the state. And so if people are interested in that, I recommend getting involved with that, especially during this time period. During the 250th, there were a lot of parades and a lot of special events going on. And groups are looking for fifers and drummers and guys to carry muskets, or people interested in educating the public on the American Revolution. So I encourage folks to get involved with that. If they're not interested in the militia, there are also a lot of local living history organizations and museums around that focus on the American Revolution, or hereditary organizations, or groups like the Fort Butts Association, or the Sons of the American Revolution, or the Daughters of the American Revolution. Everybody's doing stuff now, and now's the time. If that's what you're interested in, it's the hot time to be involved with that.
Very cool. So for all of our history lovers out there, especially if you enjoy wearing wool, get involved.
Oh, we wear linen, so we're good.
Oh, okay. See, there we go. I did not know that.
We cheat. They were linen, so we wear linen.
All right.
So it's not that terrible.
There you go. So if you don't want to join some place that makes you wear wool in the summer, join this regiment that has linen clothes. Well, we wrap up the show with a segment called The Last Chapter, where we talk about a library or bookish related question. So today I wanted to ask, what is your favorite book, movie, TV series, anything that is about or takes place during the American Revolution?
I mean, there's so many, it's really hard, but that book talk with Rick Atkinson kind of blew me away, and I'm just really eager to dive into his trilogy and really just learn more about the American Revolution. I feel like there's so many different facets of it that you can't really grasp in a fourth grade classroom, So that's the beauty of this particular role, just kind of learning something new every day. So I'm really excited to delve into that and just learn more. And Nathanael Greene is definitely getting his nods in those trilogies. So I'm excited to delve into it. Absolutely.
So my favorite was I love the Rick Atkinson books. They're great. I think I read the first Rick Atkinson book when my daughter was born, when we were at Women and Infants for a long 4 days. That was what kept me busy. Reading the British Are Coming, I think is the first book.
Yes. Yep. Time well spent.
It was, and I'm bummed that I missed his talk because it was during the workday, and I couldn't get away from the Water Resources Board for that. Unfortunately, I begged them to do it a different day at a different time, but it was when it was. But I think my favorite book is Gerald Carbone's biography of Nathanael Greene. I don't know if anybody knows Jed Carbone, but he was a reporter at the Providence Journal. He wrote a great book on Washington. Wrote a fabulous book recently on Brown and Sharp. But his history of Nathanael Greene is really concise and sharp and points out it really is a good portrait of Nathanael Greene's actions, but it also his character, and he's a flawed person like anyone is. And he had it's really interesting how Carbone is very honest with it, and it's not biased, and it points out, the greatness in Greene, but also the flaws in the character. Where his private letters to his friends are very anti-slavery, and his letters to politicians in the South are very heavily pandering to the slave owners and the southern states and the slave culture in the South, and how he eventually ends up with 2 plantations and keeps one and moves the slaves from both of them onto one, and is a slave owner. And he's a reluctant slave owner, but like people of his time, he justifies it. And so Carbone does a really good job of pointing out, the juxtaposition of, these great American patriots, and that they were also men of their time that were flawed. So I really enjoy his book. He has spoken at the Homestead several times. He doesn't so much anymore. He will pop in and make really good comments on posts on our Facebook page a lot. And if you catch one, it's really good insight. But I recommend that. We shameless plug. We carry it in our gift shop.
Oh, that's great. That's a great recommendation. We probably have it at the library too, but I would recommend that if anyone is stopping by the Nathanael Greene Homestead, they should purchase it from the gift shop.
Well, I recommend Bob Geek's books too, another great local author, and his book on the First Rhode Island Regiment is really worth a good read. I recommend that as well, and he has other Rhode Island history in our gift shop too. But Bob Geek and Jed Carbone's books, I think, are at the top for me right now.
Thank you for those recommendations. I'll definitely check those out. I have not read many books about the American Revolution. I did read a book called The Season, and it was about the history of the debutante ball, which was pretty interesting. And it actually starts in England before then, but it covers colonial era America, and it was very interesting, just to read in general about the evolution of where the concept of a debutante came from, and that kind of thing. And aside from that, the 2 things that come to mind for American Revolution, I know that it's probably super inaccurate, but I loved the series Turn. I'm a big fan of Jamie Bell. I think he's a great actor, and that show sucked me right in. And when you're talking about General Andre earlier, Dave, I was like, I know who that is because of the show.
Well, even if it's not accurate, if there are books like Atkinson's historical fiction or shows like Turn, it gets people interested. Even if it's exciting and it's fun to watch, it encourages people to learn more. So I think even if it's a show that's fluff and it's Revolutionary War themed, I think it's good. Well, you interviewed Brian last year,
Yeah.
right? And so Brian grew up in the hotbed of the American Revolution in the South, and I miss Brian tonight for this podcast because he would have been great. But he grew up watching, was it Revolutionary Kids? I can't remember the show. It was on PBS. It was a cartoon that was revolved entirely around the American Revolution. And when I
Oh.
was a kid, or not well, when I wasn't I guess when I was a kid, that was on, and it introduced me to that. And it's not completely accurate, but it was gripping. So stuff like Turn, I think, is good. I think it's good if it gets people interested.
I never would have known about Peggy Shippen or any of that whole story if I hadn't watched that show and then Googled to see if it was true. So I learn a lot when I'm watching historical shows that I feel the need to Google to see what is accurate and what isn't. And the other one that is a big hit in my household, this is actually, my husband is not big on musicals, but this is his favorite musical, 1776. Have you guys seen it?
I saw the movie, and Al Pacino was in it. It's interesting.
Oh, there's a movie with Al Pacino?
In
I'll have
1776,
to
yeah, I
check that
think there
out.
was. I think there was.
The one that I'm thinking
Okay.
of is it was, I believe it was a play first and then they made a movie of it, but I think it's the same cast that was on Broadway. And John Adams is played by William Daniels, if I remember his name correctly. I know him as Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World. But it's just the greatest, and I think it's actually historians have said that it's actually very close to an accurate, obviously without the songs, portrayal of the Constitutional Convention. And so for anyone who likes musicals, I can highly recommend 1776. It is a long one. Don't feel bad if you have to take a break at some point, but it's really good.
I'll check it out. My daughter's big into musicals.
Oh, yeah, I bet she'll love it. Well, thank you both so much for joining me. This has been a great chat, and I've really enjoyed learning more about General Nathanael Greene and all of the exciting things that we can expect from RI 250.
Thanks for having us.
Overdoing It is proud to be a resident partner of the Rhode Island Center for the Book and brought to you by library staff and community members all around the Ocean State. The project has been funded in part by the Rhode Island Office of Library and Information Services. If you'd like to share your answer to our last chapter question, send us an email at overdoingitpod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at overdoingitpod. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us to help us reach more Rhode Islanders. Thank you for listening, and this has been another episode of Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library Podcast. We're overdoing it, but you're doing just fine.